Hello my dears, welcome back to another video. There has been a video that I've seen clips of. I haven't seen the full video, so I thought I'd react to the full video with you in this video today. And it was basically a BBC debate. I think it was a debate. I don't know if it was intentionally a debate or if it just derailed into a debate, but it ended up being a debate discussing men's mental health and whether or not we should be focusing on men's mental health, etc. in Britain. And this was a debate that was being held on the BBC. And so after scanning YouTube, I finally managed to find the full video. And so I thought we could react to it together.
I'm going to change direction and talk about Jeff's book. Or the sort of subject matter, The British Bloke Decoded, which tries broadly to explain the behaviour of Britain's husbands, dads and brothers. Now, it's quite a light-hearted book.
From banter to man flu, everything finally explained.
There you go. All right, good promotion. Men have obviously and arguably taken a lot of flack, rightly, in the past few years. Many people would say post#MeToo.
His face as she said that.
Is this an attempt to rehabilitate the image of an average bloke?
Well, I suppose what I always thought was like that blokes are a subset species of men, and most blokes don't really have a huge amount of power in their own lives. They're sort of trying to be dependable, loving people for the people in their lives. They might not be the best at remembering important dates or even the names of their nephews and nieces, you know, like. But I think that it's an occasional rubbishness coming from a good place. So what I've tried to do in this book is just try to explain some of the more baffling behaviour of men, like, you know, the fact that we don't put on sun cream when we're on holiday, you know, maybe till the third day. It's easy to say, well, it's just bravado. And then I sort of thought about it more deeply and I thought, well, actually, we don't put on lotions more generally. So the moment we're on a beach and you have to navigate that bit of your lower back...
It's because you're not used to doing it.
We're not match fit, Joe. That's the thing. And you think that might be the first time we've touched that bit of our back that year. So I was trying to take a lot of these areas where men's behaviour is confusing and say, is there something deeper? And I think that they're light-hearted subjects like that, but there's also, you know, like loneliness and what happens to male friendships as we age.
Well, and when it comes to the serious points, we might come back to the application of sun cream later on, but in the Times, this headline, Rishi Sunak urged to appoint Minister for Men, suggested by a Conservative MP. New role would champion issues such as reducing male suicide. Would that be something you'd be in favour of?
Well, what's interesting about that is the hostility it sometimes faces whenever it comes up. I saw a programme where there was like a feminist academic and a Lib Dem MP, and they were so hostile to this idea. And I thought, if you flipped those things, i.e. that it's the biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide, men are less likely to go to the doctors, you know, men are less likely to maintain friendships. If that was for women, we'd often look at, well, why is society making that happen? Whereas with men, the argument is often, why are they doing that to themselves?
Okay, I'm going to just quickly check to see if we have a Minister for Women in the UK, because I don't know if we do or not. Whether or not that is the case is going to affect what I think about that statement. 1 second. Okay, so we do have a Minister for Women. So Kemi Badenoch is the Minister of Women and Equalities in the UK. So if we have a Minister for Women, then why shouldn't we have a Minister for Men? But let's see what they say anyway before I jump to conclusions.
It's the biggest cause of death for men under 50 is suicide. Men are less likely to go to the doctors, you know, men are less likely to maintain friendships. If that was for women, we'd often look at, well, why is society making that happen? Whereas with men, the argument is often, why are they doing that to themselves? So I'm not, like, totally wedded to the idea, but the hostility towards the idea, I find it instructive.
Ava?
I think that it feeds into the culture a little bit, this Minister for Men argument. Like, in my mind, I think there should be a Minister for Mental Health, which would be all-encompassing. I mean, you've got something like 7 million children waiting for prescriptions for mental health at the moment. It's a crisis that's endemic throughout the country, not specific to men. And I think, you know, a lot of ministers kind of bandy this about to sort of, I'm sorry, but make an enemy out of women. I think, not you, and I don't think your book is. I
don't accept that. I don't think it is to make an enemy. If we looked at during COVID, men were literally more likely to die from COVID. And I don't really want to cast myself as a meninist or one of these guys from the manosphere, because that's not who I am. But I do find it interesting that sometimes the arguments tend to throw it back.
But who was doing all the work during COVID? You know, a lot of the time, if you looked into people's households, it was the women who were taking on the laundry, the school care, all of that.
I'm not disputing any of that. What I'm saying that there are specific issues that men face that might warrant specific attention. I mean, literally, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. That is an arresting statistic, and if that doesn't warrant specific attention, mental health is an umbrella issue.
I have to say that is also because women are unsuccessful. That is a lot of that feeds into that statistic.
I'm sorry, that's funny. What kind of response is that? We're just not as successful. okay? No need for you to show off about your high suicide rates, okay? We're trying.
Any space for this idea that men might have unique challenges that face them. And the problem is, even as I'm saying this, in my mind, it's like I've got out the violin and I don't want to be...
read the book
I don't
and
want to be...
my mind.
I don't want to be this guy, because that's part of the problem, is because you're encouraged at one level, is men need to talk about their problems more, and then the moment you do it, you're like, all right, but not quite so often and not quite so loud. So like you say, the book is more light-hearted than that, but it certainly, goes around these issues.
Francis?
I think it's about this issue. I've got a brother, a son, nephews. Paul Novak, one of my best mates, who's leading the TUC. When you look at masculinity, it sort of feels like boys are still brought up. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to talk about your feelings. You've got to put on this bravado. And I think that has to change. But I also think that we have to change the fact that women still earn 15% less than men.
But no one's saying that you can't do both.
No, exactly.
You can multitask.
Exactly. I agree.
Can you multitask?
Well, not me personally, obviously, but I'm saying that. But I don't think that those are reasons to not address these problems.
No, I agree.
Francis.
But most women experience sexual harassment.
But I totally accept that. I don't understand what it's happening again with this conversation where I'm talking about the specific issues that men face, and you're quoting other issues which I do not contest on any level.
Here's a proposal.
I'm seeming very chippy now, aren't I? I didn't expect it.
Why don't you launch BASH, Blokes Against Sexual Harassment?
Well, I'm totally against sexual harassment, of course I am.
But do something to support women, stand by women who are facing that in the way that women stand by men.
Are you a young man who's struggling with depression? Do you have days where you contemplate self-deleting? Have you ever considered focusing all your attention onto fixing women's problems and starting your own campaign called BASH, Blokes Against Sexual Harassment? It's scientifically proven to help you fight your depression. And how do I know this? Shh, just trust the science. I just think that's quite funny. Lady said, listen, I understand that you guys are depressed and all that. I understand that you guys are trying to take your own lives or whatever. But you need to understand, we're not getting paid as much as we would like. And also, creepy guys that we're not attracted to are hitting on us and it's making us feel very uncomfy. Okay? So I feel like you guys just kind of need to suck it up a little bit and help us fix our problems. Okay? Once you fix our problems, there is no guarantee we'll help you fix yours. But can you please just fix our problems? Thank you very much.
Well, I'm totally against sexual harassment, of course I am.
But do something to support women, stand by women who are facing that in the way that women stand by men.
Do we though? I mean, he's literally just pointed out that men have high rates of suicide. Men were dying at high rates during COVID, which I didn't even know, by the way, which is crazy. I feel like we were told that the elderly had a higher death rate from COVID. We were told that people with obesity had a higher death rate from COVID. I don't remember anyone making sure that it was a high alert issue that men were dying at higher rates from COVID. Unless I missed it. Write in the comments if you remember people talking about this in the news. If you remember this being made a big story that COVID was disproportionately affecting men. If you do remember that, then maybe I just missed it. But I don't remember ever being told that COVID disproportionately affected men. If I'm not an anomaly and it actually wasn't common knowledge that men were disproportionately affected by COVID, that within itself proves his point that we kind of have a blind spot when it comes to caring about things that have a disproportionate impact on men. And I find it interesting how she's saying, support women in the same way that women have supported men. When do women do that? Did I miss it? I think that your average woman cares a lot about supporting her son. I think she cares a lot about supporting her partner. I think she cares a lot about supporting her brothers. But the idea that women have included men and, tried to champion men's rights and cared about men's issues, when did that happen? Because I just don't believe that's true. I think that typically speaking, women have always prioritized women, which is fair enough because that's the point of feminism. But to pretend that you've been caring about men's rights and men's issues all this time, and so therefore you think they should be returning the favor to you and supporting you, is just complete fallacy. When did that happen? But when it comes to caring about men's issues, it's almost, most of the time, it's really men who are trying to push that and often getting shut down by feminists in the way that he's now being shut down. And it's crazy for me to watch this, right? Because I've obviously been quite critical of the red pill. I criticized the red pill for having the same tactics as feminists in that they can't seem to uplift their own sex and help their own sex without having to crap on the opposite sex. So when I see red pillars doing all this like Crimea River stuff of being like, oh, you know, all we want to do is talk about men's issues, but like every time we talk about men's issues, people shut you down. But it's like, what do you expect when you say things like women shouldn't vote or women are like children, and you basically generalize the experience of OnlyFans girls and your sugar baby women who you have on your podcast? You generalize their experiences and their lifestyle as though that's the average woman's lifestyle, when it couldn't be further from reality, you know? So it's like, yeah, of course you're going to get pushback. Like, I don't know what you expect when you say stuff like that. Like, of course, yes, you're going to get pushback. But it's interesting to me to see Jeff in this video getting a lot of pushback still, even though he's actually delivered his points in a very reasonable, very level-headed way. At no point has he blamed women for any of these issues. At no point has he vilified women for any of these issues. He just stated issues that men are experiencing in Britain, and he just basically got shut down anyway because the women still instinctively got defensive and took it as though he was trying to take something away from the women's rights movement, or he was trying to vilify women, when at no point did he ever actually mention women until they mentioned women. And there's no confirmation that he even disputes any of the stuff that they're talking about. He might very well agree with all the points that they're making, that, yeah, we should focus on these issues that affect women too. But it's like, why are they mutually exclusive? Why can you only focus on one? Why can't we focus on both? I just don't understand. Like, if you have a minister for women and you have people advocating for women's rights, which I think is a good thing, and I think you should also have a minister for men too, because the same is true in the opposite direction. There are going to be certain things that exclusively impact men, and so why not have someone focus on that and tackle that?
And I think we could.
Well, it's I do
really
think this discussion has already been interesting. I've mentioned the suicide stat several times, and we've ended up discussing other things which are completely valid, certainly in terms of my industry, and I understand why those discussions are live discussions. But the idea that we can't have both those discussions, I genuinely find that odd,
Nobody said we
Francis.
couldn't.
Is this discussion being squeezed out? Is there not enough space for this as well?
Well, it slightly feels, I'd rather agree with Jeff. I'm fascinated listening to this discussion that at the first hint of men saying maybe, you know, we need a bit of attention, is, oh, well, women have been oppressed throughout the ages, which is true. But it must be the case that if there are specific male problems, or problems that only affect men, then we should try and deal with them at the same time as dealing with the specific issues that affect women.
What would you task the Minister for Men with doing?
Ultimately bad for men too. Sexual harassment is ultimately bad for men too. And decent men need to stand up and say so. And I think we could have better lives.
And I guess that is that. I've pretty much said all my thoughts on this video. I agree with Jeff. I think that we should absolutely start focusing on these issues. And I think that feminists need to come out of their scarcity mindset. Focusing on men's issues is not going to take anything away from women's rights or women's issues. Because if we have healthier men and healthier women, we'll have a better society, and then our children will have better outcomes because they'll be raised by healthier people. If we're going to have a women's minister, then why not have a men's minister? Because it's really hard to justify why you should have a women's minister and also simultaneously criticize the concept of a men's minister. It sounds quite sexist, in my opinion. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Do you agree with Jeff and the points that he made about the fact that we should focus more on men's mental health, and that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to have people allocated to tackling these issues? Or do you agree with the women in the video that having a minister for men would make an enemy out of women, and it will also distract away from the issues that impact women? Or I think that was their point anyway. Regardless of what your opinion is, I would be very interested to know in the comment section, so do let me know. I'd be very fascinated to read. If you've enjoyed this video, then you may as well like and subscribe. I am also on other socials, and I also make music if you would like to check me out. Links to all of that will be in my description box. Thank you so much for giving me your time today, and I'm going to see you in my next video.